Good morning, students. Once again, welcome back to session 8 of Banach Spaces class. So, in this class, let us study what's meant by an functional conjugate space. Functional conjugate space and theorems thereon. So, you know that up to now we have defined the transformation T from a norm-linear space, say X, to norm-linear space Y, where we have proved many theorems related to this. Now, in this class, let us replace this norm-linear space Y with some scalar field. Say it may be replaced by Rn and Cn, R or C, or any field, say K. Say suppose we define, say that I'll denote it by say F from X to K, where K may be real or complex. K may be real or complex. Suppose F is a linear map defined from X to K, where K is real or complex. Then such linear transformations are known as linear functionals. Okay. So linear functions are the linear transformations from X to K which are continuous. Okay. Which are continuous, and the set of all such linear functions is denoted by X star, called the conjugate space or the dual space or the adjoint space. So generally X star contains set of all functions F from X to K is linear and continuous, linear as well as continuous. We can define the dual of this dual space also, say that is X star whole star. Okay. So in fact this we can prove it to be X itself, that we will take up later. So this is called the second conjugate space or second dual space of X. Okay. So now let us take up one important lemma. The lemma says, suppose M is a linear subspace of a norm-linear space X, and let F be a functional defined on M. F be a functional defined on M means F belongs to M star, or F be a functional from M to K. Now suppose X naught is a vector which belongs to X and which doesn't belongs to M. Means suppose X naught is a vector which doesn't lies in M. Then we constructed a subspace M naught using M plus X naught. How the elements of this space looks like? Say X plus some scalar multiple of alpha X naught, say where X is an element of M and alpha is an element which is a scalar. So M naught is a subspace of X generated by M and X naught. Then this functional F from M to K can be extended from F naught to M naught to K such that norm of F naught is same as norm of F. So the theorem says this functional F defined from M to K can be extended to a functional F naught such that norm of F naught is equal to norm of F. So now since M naught contains M, F naught of M is what? F naught of M is F of M. Or in other words, F naught of X is same as F of X for every X belongs to M, because so on M naught it contains M. Okay. So if F is a function defined on M, then F naught of M is also F of M, means F naught coincides with F on M. Okay. So let's take up the proof of this lemma. So now this lemma will be proved for two different cases. So the case one is we prove it for the real non-linear space and the complex case also separately. So if first let X be a non-linear space over the real or the scalar real, which are real numbers. Okay, let X be a non-linear space over, or X is also called real non-linear space. Then each W belongs to M naught can be written as W is equal to what? X plus alpha into X naught, where X is an element of M and alpha naught is a scalar which we are taken to be R here. Okay, so now we define a function f naught from M naught to K set that f naught of W is equal to f naught of W means here X plus alpha into X naught is equal to, so this I will define it by f of X plus alpha into R naught, f of X plus alpha into R naught, because say f naught of X plus alpha into X naught is equal to what? F naught of X plus alpha into f naught of X naught, right? Yeah, X belongs to M means if X belongs to M, then f naught of X is same as f of X, okay, plus alpha times into the value of f naught of X naught I taken to be R naught. So f naught of X naught is equal to R naught we have taken. So if we define a function f naught like this, then clearly we can prove that f naught is a linear map, f naught is linear, and so f naught of X is equal to f of X for every X belongs to M, right? Therefore f naught extends f linearly to M naught. Therefore since f naught is linear as well as f naught of X is equal to f of X, f naught is an extension of f which is linearly to the subspace M naught. So what is the remaining thing? The remaining thing is we need to prove norm of f naught is same as norm of f. Norm of f naught is same as norm of f. So now what is norm of f naught? Norm of f naught is equal to supremum of mod of f naught of y, where y belongs to M naught and norm of y is less than or equal to 1. This you know. Okay, so this is definitely greater than or equal to supremum of f naught of y, where y belongs to M. If y belongs to M, definitely that supremum of those values, definitely this is greater than or equal to this one. Say norm of y is less than or equal to 1. Okay, so this is greater than or equal to supremum of, if y belongs to M, f naught of y is same as f of y. So f of y, where y belongs to M, norm of y is less than or equal to 1. Now supremum of mod of f of y, where y belongs to M, norm of y is less than or equal to 1 implies this is nothing but the function norm of f. Thus what we have proved, thus norm of f naught is greater than or equal to norm of f. Norm of f naught is greater than or equal to norm of f. So you call this by some number say 2 and this by the number say 1. Now we need to prove the converse part. Converse part is norm of f is less than or equal to norm of f naught. So for this, say you take any two elements of M, say x, let x1 and x2 belongs to M be arbitrary. Let x1 and x2 belongs to arbitrary. Then you consider f of x2 minus f of x1. F of x2 minus f of x1 is f of x2 minus x1. So this is equal to, definitely this is less than or equal to mod of f of x2 minus x1. This you know. So this is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of x2 minus x1. So this is less than or equal to norm of f into Say this is norm of x2, I add and subtract x naught. x2 plus x naught, I'll group this minus x1 plus minus x1 plus x naught. Okay. So if we take like this, then what will happen? Say this is less than or equal to, so this will be less than or equal to norm of x2 plus x naught plus norm of x1 plus norm of x1 plus x naught. Okay. So this implies, so I'll keep the term minus f of x1 in the left term as it is, minus f of x1. I'll transform this term x1 plus x0 to the left side. It gives minus f of x1 minus norm of f into norm of x1 plus x0 is less than or equal to minus f of x2 plus norm of f into norm of x2 plus x0. Now this inequality is true for all x1, x2 belongs to M. So since this inequality is true for all x1, x2 belongs to M, implies that supremum of this holds for the maximum element also. So that's why supremum of y belongs to M. So the above is, I replace x1 and x2 by y. Supremum of y belongs to M minus f of y minus norm of f into norm of y plus x0 is less than or equal to. So this inequality is true for every element, means it is true for the maximum on the left and minimum on the right also. Therefore this is less than or equal to infimum of y belongs to M minus f of y plus norm of f into norm of y plus x0. Okay. Now these are the numbers only. So I'll choose R0 to be any, we choose R0 to be any real number such that R0 lies between these two numbers. So this number and the right hand side. I'll choose R0 to be the middle, between the numbers. So it follows that, so since this holds for every element y, so it follows that minus f of y minus norm of f into norm of y plus x0 is less than or equal to R0 less than or equal to minus f of y. So minus f of y plus norm of f into norm of y plus x0. This holds for every y belongs to M. Okay. Now I'll take y is equal to x by alpha. Definitely x is an element of M, 1 by alpha is an element of M, therefore x by alpha is an element of M. So I'll take y is equal to x by alpha in the above expression. We get minus f of x by alpha minus norm of f plus norm of x by alpha plus x0 less than or equal to R0 less than or equal to minus f of x by alpha plus norm of f into norm of x by alpha plus x0. So use the linearity condition. I will take 1 by alpha outside and we will get this expression. Now if alpha is positive, then the above expression, this expression gives, so what will happen? I will take 1 by alpha outside. So the remaining is minus f of x minus norm of f into, I will take the LCM as alpha, that I will take it outside, norm of x plus alpha into x0 is less than or equal to R0 less than or equal to 1 by alpha times minus f of x here it is plus norm of f into norm of x plus alpha into x0. So this implies minus f of x minus norm of f into norm of x plus alpha naught is what? Norm of w less than or equal to, I multiply throughout by alpha, it becomes R0 becomes alpha into R0 less than or equal to minus f of x plus norm of f into norm of w. X plus alpha into x0 is w. Okay. So this gives minus negative of or minus f of x plus alpha into R0 which is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w, and f of x plus alpha into R0 less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. Okay. Then you take the second inequality. Taking the second inequality, that is f of x plus alpha into R0 is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. We see that f of x plus r into alpha into r naught means f of x plus alpha into x naught, because this is the value f of x plus alpha into r naught less than or equal to, sorry, this is f naught of x plus alpha into r naught is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. Now this implies f naught of x plus alpha into x naught is w. This implies f naught of w is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. Okay, this I will call it as 6. Similarly, but if alpha is less than 0, then taking the first inequality in phi, we can see that f naught of w is also less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. Now I will replace w by minus w in the above expression. It gives minus f naught of w less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. So from this you call it as 7. 6 says f naught of w is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. 7 says minus f naught of w is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. From 6 and 7 we declare that mod of f naught of w is less than or equal to norm of f into norm of w. You call this as 8. Now from this expression 8 we can see that f is already a functional, means it is bounded linear bounded linear functional on M. Now f is bounded means f naught is also bounded. If f is bounded, then this is less than or equal to this one means f naught is also bounded, and moreover f naught is bounded means what will happen? F naught is already a linear, therefore f naught is a linear functional on M naught. F naught is a linear function on M naught, and also norm of f naught is what? Supremum of mod of f naught of w, where w belongs to M naught, norm of w is less than or equal to 1. Using 8, we can say that if you take supremum of the left, supremum of this one, where norm of w is less than or equal to 1, then this gives norm of f naught is less than or equal to norm of f. It is called as 9. So from 2 we have proved norm of norm of f is less than or equal to norm of f naught. Now in 9 we have proved norm of f naught is less than or equal to norm of f. Therefore from 2 and 9 we can declare that norm of f naught is same as norm of f. Therefore the lemma will be proved for real case. Now let us consider the complex case, when x is a complex nonlinear space. So let f be a complex valued function. Defined on the subspace M of x. Let g be the complex valued function, means it is complex valued function means it gives the complex number. So I will take the real part of f, g as real part of f, and h as imagined part of f. So g as real part of f and h as imagined part of f. Then f of x becomes g of x plus I times h of x. Now what are g and h? G and h are real valued functions. Defined on the real space M. If g and h are real valued functions defined on the real space M, then g and h can be extended by the previous case. So g can be extended to norm preserving real valued functions defined on M naught. G can be extended to G naught and H can be extended to H naught. Okay. Now for x belongs to M, we have G of Ix plus I into H of Ix. G of Ix, here I replace x by Ix. G of Ix plus I times H of Ix is equal to f of Ix. F of Ix is, since f is linear, I times into f of x, that's equal to I, if you multiply throughout by I, it becomes minus h of x plus I times g of x. So now equating real and imaginary parts. Now equating real and imaginary parts on the imaginary parts in the above expression, we get g of Ix is what? This is the real part on the left. This is minus h of x is the real part. So g of Ix is equal to minus h of x, and h of Ix is the imaginary part on the left. So the imaginary part on the right hand side is g of x. So h of Ix is equal to g of x. Consequently, we can write f of x is equal to g of x plus I into h of x means in h of x I can write so minus I into g of ix. Also, yeah, g of x means what? H of ix plus I times h of x. Therefore, we can write f of x in this way. Now, g is a real valued function. Now, as I said, g is a real valued function defined on the real space M. Therefore, g can be extended to a real valued function g naught on the real space M naught by the case 1 in such a way that norm of g is same as norm of g naught, norm preserving linear functional. So, we define f naught. Now, for this case, now we define f naught for x belongs to M naught by, so f naught of x is equal to, so extension is g naught of x minus I times into g naught of ix. Therefore, definitely f naught is a complex valued function which extends for M naught. Clearly, we can show that f naught is linear because g naught is linear and and norm of and f naught is equal to f on M. So, clearly f naught is linear on the complex space M naught and such that f naught is equal to f on M, means f naught is an extension of f on the f naught is an extension of f, okay, to M naught. Now, we show that again norm of f naught is same as norm of f, okay. So, for this let y belongs to M naught be an arbitrary point and we write f naught of y, we write f naught of y is equal to, it's a complex valued function. So, I will write f naught of y is equal to r into e power of I theta, where r is non-zero, non-negative and theta is a real. Then what will happen? F naught of y, mod of f naught of y is equal to mod of this means it is r, that can be written as e power of minus I theta into r into e power of I theta. So, it gives r itself only. So, e power of minus I theta, r into e power of I theta is just f naught of y, okay, f naught of y. So, this is equal to, since f naught is linear, f naught of e power of minus I theta into y. So, since f naught extends to g naught, okay, on the real space. So, this is equal to g naught of e power of minus I theta into y. This is less than or equal to mod of g naught into e power of minus I theta into y. So, this is less than or equal to, you know that it is less than or equal to norm of g naught into norm of e power of minus I theta into y, because f of x is, you know that mod of f of x is always less than or equal to norm of f into norm of x. So, this is less than or equal to norm of g naught into this is nothing but norm of I, because norm of e power of minus I theta is 1. So, this is less than or equal to, so norm of g naught is less than, definitely less than or equal, because norm of g naught is same as norm of g, because it coincides on the real space. So, this is less than or equal to norm of g into norm of x, but norm of g is what? Which is certainly less than or equal to norm of f, okay, norm of f, this is into norm of x. So, now f is bounded, okay, yeah, now f is bounded, therefore, we can say that g is also, now since f is bounded, we can say that f naught is also bounded. If f is, since f is bounded, so f naught is also bounded. Therefore, f naught is a linear functional and norm of f naught is what? Norm of, if you take norm of f naught, definitely less than or equal to norm of f, okay, because say we have, look here, say what is on the left hand side? Left hand side is mod of f naught of y. Mod of f naught of y is on the right hand side, it is norm of f into, this is norm of f into norm of w. So, if you take supremum of mod of f naught of, supremum of mod of f naught of y, where y belongs to m naught, norm of y. So, this is sorry, this is norm of g into one thing, it is not x, this is y, that's why, okay, norm of g into norm of y, norm less than norm of f. So if we take, so f naught of y is less than or equal to norm of y, right? So if we take supremum of mod of f naught of y such that y belongs to m naught, norm of y is less than or equal to 1. So what will happen on the left hand side, on the right hand side, supremum of, so if you apply supremum of norm of f into norm of y, where y is, norm of y is less than or equal to 1. Less than or equal to 1 means what will happen on the left hand side, it is nothing but norm of, what is this, norm of f naught. So norm of y is less than or equal to 1 means this becomes less than or equal to norm of f. Norm of f naught is less than or equal to norm of f. Norm of f naught is less than or equal to norm of f. That is the one result we have proved. So similarly on the same lines as in the case 1, we can prove that the converse part also, norm of f is less than or equal to norm of f naught. Therefore norm of f naught is equal to norm of f. That means the lemma is proved for both the cases, real as well as the complex. Means if f is a linear function defined on the linear subspace m of x, then if m naught is the superset or super subspace of m, then this f can be extended to norm preserving functional f naught such that norm of f naught is norm of f. So therefore the lemma is proved for the both real case as well as complex case. This is very important in proving next theorem, which is stated as the Horn-Banach theorem. Horn-Banach theorem. This is also known as Horn-Banach extension theorem. Horn-Banach extension theorem. So this is the important part of Horn-Banach theorem, the last lemma. So here only thing is Horn-Banach theorem is just an extension of the previous lemma. So in the previous lemma we just extend the function f to the the subspace m naught. Here we extend f to the whole space x. Okay, so the lemma, the theorem states if m is a subspace of a normed linear space x, and if f is a linear functional defined on m, then f can be extended to a functional big F defined on the whole space x such that norm of f is same as norm of f. Norm of big F is same as norm of f. This is the extension. This is called the Horn-Banach extension theorem. So now, in the examination, if they ask this result, depending on the marks, usually they will ask it for 15 marks, whole question. So in that case, you need to prove the lemma also. Okay, they may ask state and prove Horn-Banach theorem for the real case. Then we need to prove the lemma for the real case, and we need to prove this theorem. And if they ask it for prove Horn-Banach theorem for the complex case, assuming it for real case, then also we need to write the lemma. We need to write the lemma for complex case, and you need to proceed this proof. Okay, so depending on the marks, you need to answer. So now proof of this theorem. Now if m naught itself is a single extension, then what will happen? M naught becomes x. If m naught is equal to x, then the proof is completed because the lemma itself gives the proof. So if not, m naught is not all of x, then what will happen? There may be extension. Say you make m naught by adding x naught. So you make m1 by adding x naught, and suppose x1 is their point which is in x, not in m naught. Then you construct a space m1 using m1 is equal to m1 plus m2 is equal to or m1 is equal to m naught plus x1. Okay, and we have some function exists. Okay, say that is called f1, norm of f is same as norm of f1, and so on. It will continue. Okay, so if P denotes the set of all ordered pairs, so ordered pair f lambda comma m lambda, where f lambda is an extension of f to the subspace, where to the subspace m lambda containing m, and norm of f lambda is same as norm of f. Suppose at each time we have proved the lemma for each element. Okay, then clearly P is non-empty. If P denotes this set, all the extensions, then clearly P is not equal to empty, because at least one element, the extension f0 and m0 definitely is in P. Otherwise no need of the proof itself. Okay, so define on this set P containing f0 and m0, we define a partially order on P by setting f lambda comma m lambda is less than or equal to f mu and m mu. F lambda is m lambda is less than or equal to f mu m mu if and only if m lambda is a subset of m lambda is contained in m mu, and f lambda is equal to f mu on where? On m lambda. F lambda is equal to f mu on m lambda. Okay, this is a define a partial order on this P. Let Q be the, let Q is equal to fi comma mi be the totally ordered set in P. So this is a P is a partially order, and let Q be the totally ordered set in P. Then definitely by definition Q has a upper bound. Definitely Q has a upper bound. Say Q, that upper bound, definitely what is the upper bound for these subsets? So if you take a union, that becomes the upper bound. So and the function which upper bound says I have taken to be phi comma union mi, where phi of x is what? Where phi of x is equal to fi of x on mi, where phi of x is equal to fi of x on mi, and union mi is also a subspace of x. Since Q is totally ordered, phi is definitely well-defined function. Since Q is totally ordered, phi is a well-defined function. Now say you consider now this case. We know Zone's lemma. Zone's lemma says every non-empty partially ordered set, in which each chain means totally ordered set, in which each chain has an upper bound, as a maximal element. A non-empty partially ordered set in which each totally ordered set as an upper bound contains a maximal element. So therefore above condition Zone's lemma, all the conditions of a Zone's lemma are satisfied here. Okay, all the conditions of a Zone's lemma are satisfied here. Therefore by Zone's lemma we have a maximal element f comma h in the totally ordered set Q. Now if we can complete the proof by showing that this h is nothing but x. This h is nothing but x. If not, suppose this is h is not equal to x. H is not equal to x means h is a proper subspace of x. Then what will happen? There exists some element, say x naught belongs to x but not in h. Means there exists some x naught belongs to x minus h. If there exists some element x naught belongs to x naught minus x by x minus h means, so by our lemma again f can be extended to a norm, extended to a functional f naught on h naught. H naught is h union x naught, which contains h properly. So we can extend f to the linear function f naught defined on h naught. But this contradicts the maximality of f comma h, because f comma h is the maximal element in Q. So this is a contradiction. Therefore what we must have, we must have h is equal to n. We must have h is equal to x. Thus the theorem is proved. So the Hahn-Banach theorem just says it is an extension theorem. So the functional which defined on the subspace can be extended to a norm preserving functional which such that norm of f is same as norm of f. Okay, thank you.